All right, everyone, let's talk about some of the best rare campaign farmers in Raid Shadow Legends, and let's head over to the index section so you can take a look at their skills and abilities. And we're going to start off with a very well-known campaign farmer in the Ogren tribes. That is, of course, going to be none other than Bela. Now, crazy enough, I've been playing the game since April, and I still haven't gotten Bela, which is crazy because I've definitely done my fair share of Void summons. So, I wanted to also mention this as well, is I know that a lot of these champions I'm going to say here at the start, even though they are rare, they're going to be some Void rares. Some of these champions are, you're probably not going to have them, especially if you're really new to the game. So, towards the end of the video, I've also included a list of champions that are going to be decent campaign farmers, not as good as the ones at the start, but they're going to be a lot more new player friendly in order to acquire, because you will be able to get them from farming the campaign stages, and that'll also mean that you'll be able to skill book them a lot easier as well. But we're essentially going to go through the list in terms of the best campaign farmers all the way through to the ones that you can farm in the campaign. So Bela is phenomenal because all of his abilities attack all enemies, which is huge. Definitely going to be one of the primary things that we are looking for on a campaign farmer. Of course, if you can attack all enemies, that means that you can clear waves quicker, and having that on all of his abilities is huge, especially the auto attack. That's really the one that we want that has attacks all enemies, because the auto attack does not have a cooldown, which is huge, because if you have a cooldown but your primary skill is not attacks all enemies, that means that you have to essentially spend extra time attacking enemies individually, and it just slows down your campaign farm. So having attacks all enemies, especially on the auto attack, is absolutely phenomenal. All the extra debuffs and utility that he has is just kind of an added bonus, and overall Bela is just regarded as one of the best campaign farmers in the game. Even though he's a rare champion, he definitely stacks up to the campaign farming powers of many epics and legendaries. That is how good he is. Alright, now let's move into the demon spawn, and let's talk about one of his competitors. That is going to be Felhounds, another phenomenal campaign farmer. He does have the attacks all enemies auto attack right here, and he also has another really cool skill. Now, this isn't really going to be as much for campaign farming. It's a great skill for Fire Knights, though. But something else that I've heard about Felhound, now, I don't know this to be 100% sure because I don't have a Bela, even though I've been playing since April. But I've heard that Felhound's attack animation is actually a little bit quicker. So if you min-max and you gear properly, you can actually get Felhound to farm the 12 brutal stages, 12-3, 12-6, you can actually get him to farm a little bit quicker because of the slower, or I guess the faster attack animation. So, but he's a great one. He's definitely a competitor to Bela if you can gear him up properly. Really importantly, I say gear up properly. This is going to be a theme among all campaign farmers, especially if you guys are really new to the game. You might be a little disappointed that your campaign farmer is maybe not clearing things as quickly as you might expect. That's very normal, and trust me, that's going to be your gear and not your actual champion. Just because you have one of these really good champions like Bela or Felhound doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be doing 10-second runs of the campaign. You're still going to need really good gear, and it's still going to take some commitment and time in order to get to that point. So keep that in mind. All right, and the third champion that we're going to talk about is actually someone that I don't really see too many talk about too much, but she was the only other rare champion that I could find that had an auto attack on, or that had the AoE on an auto attack. And that is going to be in the Undead Horde, and that is Banshee. So you have Grave Chill, attacks all enemies, has a 20% chance of placing a 30% decreased defense debuff for one turn. She also has another AoE on her second skill with a 2-turn cooldown, actually, which is crazy. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of removing one random buff from each target, and her third skill is not really going to be too huge for campaign farming. Now, I want to mention something really important about this, though. Attacks 2 times at random is much different than attacks one enemy 2 times. At random means that it has a chance of attacking multiple enemies, and you guys will see why this is really important as I move into some of the other champions that we're going to talk about. So when it comes to campaign farming, attacks an enemy this number of times, 2 times, is not as good as attacks 2 times at random. That is going to be much better for campaign farming. All right, so that's the 3 rares with AoE auto attacks. Now let's move on to some other really good campaign farmers, and I wanted to talk about the starting rares, but in a different order than in some of my other videos. And this order is going to be strictly with how good they are in terms of campaign farming. So, of course, everybody has their favorite starter champions, and overall, the starter champions are amazing in comparison to all the other rares in the game, especially when you take a look at how many junky rares there are. They are way above average. They are all very good, and they all definitely have plenty of uses besides just doing one thing in specific. But when it comes to campaign farming, let's take a look at how good the starters are. Now, number one is indeed still, of course, in my opinion, going to be Kale. And the reason is his first skill is honestly not that good. Not good for campaign farming. It's okay, I guess, for the clan boss, but it's his second and his third skill that make him a phenomenal campaign farmer. Attacks all enemies, has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit, fills the turn meter of this champion by 25% for each enemy killed. Now, if you gear him up properly, he is definitely going to be killing multiple enemies with this skill. It is an AoE, it has a short cooldown, it's going to be filling your turn meter, extra chance of inflicting a crit. It's a great skill for campaign farming. Then you have his third skill, which has that attacks 4 times at random. Now, once again, much better than attacks an enemy 4 times. Because of the way that it's phrased right here, attacks 4 times at random, this has a chance of attacking multiple enemies. So it's not going to be quite as good as an AoE, but it's going to be significantly better than just a single target attack. So this is actually not a bad skill, and if geared up properly, he's going to be killing multiple enemies with his Disintegrate skill when it comes to campaign farming. All right, next up on the list is surprisingly going to be Elhain, or Elhain, depending on how you pronounce it. We're going to go to the High Elves, and if we go to Elhain, the reason why is, once again, her first skill, not going to be too great for campaign farming. It does hit pretty hard, which is really nice, but it's the fact that she has 2 AoEs, and they are both on pretty short cooldowns. Valley of Death has a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies 2 times, and then you have Lightning Arrow, which you can get down to a 4-turn cooldown with skill books. Attacks one enemy, but then attacks all enemies. So it is an AoE with an extra chance of inflicting crit, and it gives you a crit rate buff. Pretty darn good overall. So remember, campaign waves have 3 waves of monsters. So if you have 2 AoEs, even if you don't have an AoE on the auto attack, that's 2 out of the 3 waves that you should pretty much be able to one-shot if you gear it properly. So that leaves you only 1 wave that you have to really worry about, I guess, single target attacks or maybe clearing a little bit slowly. So she's definitely going to be a good one when it comes to campaign farming. All right, third up is going to be Gaelic. That's right, Gaelic is not last place when it comes to the starters and campaign farming. And the reason is, once again, all the starters, their auto attack really not that great for campaign farming, but he has 2 pretty darn good skills when it comes to campaign farming. Hellraiser, which is a AoE, extra chance of inflicting a crit, has a speed buff on him as well, pretty good with a short cooldown, but he also has this ability, very similar to Kale's Disintegrate ability. Cursed Blade attacks 4 times at random, which once again, if geared up properly, this is going to be killing more than 1 target. It's not as good as an AoE, but it's definitely better than a single target attack. So pretty good. Probably not quite as good as Elhain, but definitely going to be better than who, in my opinion, is going to be last place just when it comes to campaign farming. And that is going to be Athel or Aethel. So let's go to the Sacred Order. Now, once again, she's not last place as a starter champion overall. She's just, in my opinion, last place when it comes to campaign farming. And that is because she only has 1 AoE attack. And it is on a short cooldown, which is really nice. She does have a phenomenal skill 3 for other applications, but it's not quite going to be as useful in the campaign. I guess it lets you not invest as much into her gear because it gives you an attack buff, but the fact that she only has 1 AoE type attack in comparison to the other starter rares puts her in last place just for campaign farmers out of the starter rares. And again, just like the other ones, her A1 skill, it's a great skill, absolutely phenomenal with the weaken debuff, but for campaign farming, it's all about speed and efficiency, and because it's only a single target attack, not really going to be the best. Now, a great thing about this third skill is, even though it's not amazing for campaign farming, is it does give you an extra turn, which means that it doesn't eat up your entire turn to end up using this buff. So it's essentially like a free buff skill, which is really nice. All right, so now that we've talked about the starter rares and their efficiency when it comes to campaign farming, I thought I would throw in some honorable mentions as well. So let's go to Coldheart. Now, Coldheart is in here, even though she's a Void rare, going to be on the same lines as Bela and Felhound. As a new player, there's a good chance you probably don't have her, but even though she doesn't have that AoE skill 1, she does have it as attacks a certain number of times, which happens to be 4 times at random. So very similar to like Disintegrate and Gaelic skill. It's not quite as good as an AoE, but it's definitely going to be better than a single target attack. So it's a pretty darn good auto attack. And she also has so many applications outside of just the campaign. She's phenomenal for Spider, very good for Clan Boss. Overall, one of the best rare champions in the game. Some people would even argue the best, and she's definitely not bad at campaign farming. I've used her, and she can clear campaign pretty darn quickly. Maybe not as quickly as Bela or Felhound, but still pretty darn quickly. Here's her AoE, which you can get down to a 3-turn cooldown. Very, very solid. And then her last skill is not really meant for the campaign. This is more along the lines for Spider or maybe really high-level dungeons, but very solid overall. Definitely going to be an honorable mention for campaign farmers. And the last 3 champions that I wanted to mention go along those lines of being more geared towards newer players because they are all going to be farmable from the campaign. Now, they're definitely not going to be as good as the champions that I've mentioned up to this point, but they are still going to be decent and definitely new player friendly. Let's go to the Barbarians, and let's actually talk about Berserker. This guy right here, he is farmable from the campaign. He's not phenomenal. His first skill is definitely better than a lot of other skills, especially the starters, because it does fill his turn meter by 30% if it's a critical, and you can gear him up to the point where he always crits. So having his turn meter fill at least a little bit definitely means that you'll be taking turns a bit quicker in comparison to your enemies, which means at least you'll be able to clear things a little bit quicker than a lot of other rares. He also has attacks one enemy, grants an extra turn if the target is killed, and if he's geared up properly, you should be able to kill whatever target you're attacking with this skill, which means he's going to be taking an extra turn every turn. And here's his AoE as well. 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies 2 times, ignores 20% target's defense, which means this ability is indeed going to hit like a truck. But, you know, for being a farmable rare, he's definitely not as good as a lot of the other champions that I've mentioned up to this point, but you can definitely make it work. Next place is going to be in the Knight Revenants, and we are going to go to Executioner. Another very, very good champion, especially because of this ability right here. He does have a counterattack, which you can get down to 5 turns. He does also have an AoE, which is really, really nice. You can get it down to 3 turns, and the combination of these two means that when he has his counterattack, even though he's not going to be the one that's attacking, when enemies are attacking him, he's going to be able to attack them back and still do a little bit of damage. So he's definitely viable, not the absolute best, but the combination of these 2 skills, even though his first skill is not the best for campaign farming, he's a farmable rare, very new player friendly. You can definitely find a way to make it work. And finally, the last champion is going to be in the High Elves, and that is going to be HRus. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring her up is, once again, she is farmable, but she has a skill that will look very familiar if you have Relic Keeper or if you've seen Relic Keeper's skills, and that is this one right here. Attacks one enemy, grants an extra turn if the target is killed. Now, again, if you gear her up properly, which is not easy to do, if you're a new player, don't expect this to happen because you're going to need some very good gear. You're going to need to invest silver in it, and you're going to need very, very good stats in order to accomplish this goal. But if you do gear her up properly, she does gain an extra turn every time the target is killed with this skill. And because this is an auto attack, it doesn't have a cooldown, you can kind of get the whole idea where you can chain this skill over and over again to where every time you kill an enemy with it, you're able to use the skill again, then it kills an enemy, then you use the skill again. Very similar to Relic Keeper, except she's a rare. Second skill, not really going to be the best for campaign farming, but this is another really nice addition right here, the Avenger passive, which counterattacks the attacker when an ally is attacked, which is really nice. Also going to essentially add a little bit of extra offense to your defenses and help you clear things out a little bit quicker as well. So definitely an honorable mention. She is farmable. Not going to be as good as some of the champions that I mentioned at the start, but a lot of the last few champions that I mentioned are going to be new player friendly in order to acquire. That's going to be the list for the video today, though. I've spent a lot of time talking about a whole bunch of different campaign farming champions, so I'm hoping that no matter where you are and what stage of the game, you are at least able to learn a little bit from this video, especially if you are newer, though. So if you guys did enjoy this video and it did help out, and you want more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Really do appreciate all the support, everyone. Thank you, thank you. We are getting really close to 20,000. If you enjoyed this video as well and you want to help out, tossing a quick like takes only about a quarter of a second, really does help out. So thank you to those of you guys who do that. And of course, more videos should be popping up on the screen right now. So if you're interested, feel free to check them out. That's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, This is Salt of the Salty Guild signing out.